Hey guys, welcome back. I know it's been a minute or two since I posted my last video, or well, try maybe a month or two since I posted my last video. So I want to say thank you for being patient with me. I've had a busy couple of months. I've been traveling for work, doing some television shows, mostly overseas. But I'm back now and I've got some time to finish up this video and hopefully a couple more coming very soon. Also, welcome to another further tour of my house because I can't seem to figure out exactly where I want to make these videos. I don't have a dedicated space set up for making them, at least doing these wraparounds and intros and outros and stuff. So today I'm doing it by my wood stove here where it's nice and warm because winter's almost here, it's getting cold outside, and this is my primary heat here. So feels nice. Speaking of staying warm, today's video is about a trip I took to French Polynesia, Tahiti, and some of the various islands and atolls around there while I was shooting a Discovery Channel show for Shark Week. Now, if you haven't seen the video I posted a couple of months ago, which was some Super 8 footage that I shot when I was on that trip, you can check that out on my channel. But today I'm going to talk about some stills that I took on a 35mm zoom point and shoot. Now, I feel like a lot of people discount these zoom point and shoot cameras and they're not terribly popular, but they can be really, really useful in a lot of situations. And I think when you're going on vacation, when you're going on trips where photography may not be your primary focus, but you still want to have something with you, then these point and shoots are definitely something you should look at. Now, specifically, the one that I shot with on this trip was this Olympus Superzoom 120. I picked this up from a thrift store. It was maybe $6 or $7, maybe even less, I can't remember, but it wasn't much. And it's in great shape, and honestly, it's a great little camera. Now, some of the more interesting features on this particular camera are that it has the all-weather kind of weather sealing that Olympus like to put on their point and shoots. It's also got a nice lens on it. It's 35mm to 120mm zoom range on it. Now, I like that it goes to 35. A lot of point and shoot zooms only open up to 38 on the wide end. So having that little bit of extra comes in really useful sometimes. It also has a few more features on there. One of the most notable ones that I think is cool is that it has a burst mode that will fire 4 frames in succession if you hold down the shutter button. Here, I'll let you hear that. So you hit the mode button until it gets to C. I'm guessing that maybe stands for constant or something, but here, take a listen. That's not bad, right? So if you've got some fast action you want to follow, this camera right here and that feature could be something that you're interested in. Another interesting thing about this camera is the on-off switch is actually the flash here. So you just push that out and it's on, push that flash back in and it's off. Overall, feels good in the hand. It's a little bulkier than I wish it was. It doesn't fit comfortably in a pants pocket. Maybe if you've got like a coat pocket, but otherwise you can keep it in a hip pouch, backpack, keep it close by. It's very handy, very easy and fast to use, which honestly, that's the greatest thing about these zoom point and shoots is how quick they are to use. And that's what I really like about it. And that's another reason why I took it with me to Tahiti while I was working. I knew I wasn't gonna have a lot of time to focus on photography, and I didn't want to bring a medium format camera. I didn't even want to bring an SLR. You know, I didn't want to deal with changing lenses or anything that would take away from me having a chance to take a shot and possibly missing it if I'm fiddling with a lot of settings. I like to just turn it on, frame it up, take the photo, and then get back to work. Now, I feel like these zoom point and shoot cameras really don't get the attention they deserve. And there's some great ones out there. Now, of course, there's some not so great ones out there, especially the older models. But if you can find a good condition, newer, late model, maybe mid-90s, late 90s point and shoot zoom, they're actually quite good. The lenses are excellent, albeit a bit slow. I think this one at 35mm is about an f4.5. And by the time you've zoomed all the way into 120mm on this one, you're at around f10. And that's pretty much par for the course. But shooting in bright day shouldn't be a problem. And I recommend, say, 400 speed film, so you have a little bit more versatility there. But as far as performance goes, they can deliver if you use them in the right situations. If you can find one that's in good shape for not very much money, and honestly, let's face it, with these cameras, in general, They're very inexpensive. They don't cost a lot of money. It should be no problem to find one at a thrift store or even a cheaper one on eBay. They really can do an excellent job, and I recommend if you can find one, keep it on you, keep it with you, never miss a shot. That's the best part of these. Very convenient and fun to use. So instead of going on and on too much about this particular camera, because honestly it's probably as good as a dozen others, let's get into the video. I'll take you along with me on my trip to Tahiti shooting for Shark Week and how I use this camera to capture images along the way. A lot of the jobs I get shooting television shows takes place overseas. We check most of our large gear in these big Pelican cases, but we do bring the cameras and the bare minimum equipment to allow us to shoot as our carry-ons on the plane. And if you think working in film and television is all glamour, rest assured they still make us fly economy just like most people. But the flight to Tahiti is only about 8.5 hours, and Air Tahiti made it plenty comfortable. Now, the main island of Tahiti in French Polynesia was not our final stop. Most of the shooting was going to take place around a few of the hundreds of remote atolls in French Polynesia, so we quickly boarded another flight headed for the island of Tikihau. From the air, you get a good look at these atolls, which are essentially thin, ring-shaped islands surrounding a lagoon. Once we landed in Tikihau, we loaded our gear in trucks and headed to what was going to be our transportation and home for the next couple of weeks, 2 large 50-foot catamarans. Now it was just a matter of loading our gear onto the boats, building the equipment, and making ourselves at home. Everyone had their own room, and most surprisingly to me, each room had its own bathroom, albeit pretty small. After I was all settled in, I wanted to catch some late-day shots, so I loaded the Olympus Superzoom 120 with a roll of Kodak Ultramax 400, which I find to be a great film for point-and-shoot cameras like this. We were going to set sail soon to our first filming location, so I stayed on the boat to take a few snaps from the top deck. Being stuck in one location made having the zoom range of this camera already very useful. Then, we were off on the open seas and treated to one of the many gorgeous sunsets French Polynesia had in store for us. Jet lag was hitting me pretty good at this point, and I was up really early the next morning before sunrise. At least I got a chance to try out the mini bathroom shower before work, and I had time to get out on the boat deck to see where we had arrived. We were actually still on the atoll of Tikihau, but it's a really large coral island, and we were now on the remote far side from the main village. The sunrise might have been even better than last night's sunset. After a light breakfast and some coffee, we started prepping our gear for the shoot day, and shooting some drone B-roll of the atoll. But I kept the Olympus close so I could take photos as the light changed through the morning. At mid-morning, we loaded up onto a skiff to head out to our shark dive location and start the first day of filming. I wasn't going to be diving this trip, so my job was to operate the surface camera. Honestly, I've been in the water enough with sharks, so I wasn't going to complain about that, especially since this was a no-cage shark dive. At the end of the day, we went back to the main dock on Tikihau, and the next morning I was woken early by the freight delivery to the island. There was a lot of activity, and since I was up early, I got a chance to walk the village for a few photos. After that, we sailed on to another atoll called Apataki, and on the way to our dive location, I brought out a little stowaway I'd secreted aboard. Okay, so full disclosure, the Olympus Superzoom 120 was not the only 35mm point-and-shoot camera I brought with me on this trip. I also brought a Canon Sure Shot A1 waterproof camera that a friend let me borrow on the off chance I might be able to get in the water and take some stills while I was out there. So, not to give too much of a spoiler, but I was able to get in the water. I did take some underwater stills. However, I also fried the camera. Apparently, the seals are not as strong as they once were, and some water leaked in, and eventually the whole thing just shut down. Really sorry about that, because it wasn't my camera. Oops. I had loaded up the A1 with Fuji 200, and on the way out I took some snaps of the crew just to make sure everything was working like it was supposed to. We stopped on a remote beach for lunch, and I decided to explore around a little to find some interesting shots. I saw this little boat anchored off the shore in the distance, and I wanted to get to it for a shot. However, the dead coral that makes up the island didn't make things easy for me walking out there, so I didn't go much further after that. Once lunch was over, we were back on the water to look for the sharks, and it didn't take long before they came straight to us. One benefit of the A1 is that since it's supposed to be waterproof and float, I wasn't nervous to hang it off the edge for some photos. Getting it back might have been another story. Back on the Apataki dock that night, I walked around to take some photos at twilight. The A1 handled well, if not a bit bulky for my taste. The next morning, I got a chance to walk around Apataki in the daylight, and I was back to shooting on the Olympus. The island was full of interesting color, texture, and culture to shoot, and the versatility of the zoom lens helped me make the most of my compositions without much of any compromise. After Apataki, we headed toward Fakarava Island, and we weren't the only crew headed there. As much as I liked our little catamaran, clearly they had a nicer boat. Fakarava is a massive atoll, and much more built up than the other islands we'd been at. I took some time to walk around, and exploring this island was an embarrassment of riches in terms of subjects to shoot. By this point, I was super happy with how the Olympus Superzoom 120 was performing. The action was snappy, and the lens had great quality throughout the range. It gave plenty of excellent color, great contrast, and more than enough resolution in the negatives. The coral beaches, though, were just as unforgiving as ever.
All right, the coral's kind of slippery, okay?
Our plane home didn't leave until late in the day, so I had the morning to finish the last few frames on my film rolls. After that roll was shot out, it was time to get in the water for a snorkel and test out the Canon A1's underwater capability. I was rightfully nervous about the seals in the A1, so I decided to tape up every part of it just for extra insurance. I was hoping to see the little black-tipped shark I photographed earlier swimming around the beach, but he was long gone by now. I found the A1 to be a bit frustrating to shoot underwater. It was really difficult to frame through my goggles in the viewfinder. I was still able to get some shots off, even if not expertly composed and maybe a bit out of focus. That was it. I didn't get much of a chance to practice before it completely stopped working. Water had leaked in and destroyed the camera. It's a shame about what happened to the A1, and I felt really bad about it, but luckily my friend isn't too mad at me, I hope. But both cameras shot really well. I'm super pleased with how the Olympus Superzoom performed. Like I suspected, it's a little bit soft on the long end, but not enough to really bother me, and being able to reach out that far to get compositions was super awesome. It was really convenient and a lot of fun to use, and it was so quick and fast to use. So what more can you ask for in a point and shoot? The A1 I also thought performed really, really well. It took excellent photos above the water. That 35mm prime lens is a really good performer. The only thing I really didn't like about it was the bulk of the camera, and I understand it needs to be that way to be waterproof, but it wasn't waterproof. So I don't think I would pick up another one, and I don't really recommend it if your primary reason for having that kind of camera is to get in the water with it. These cameras are just a little too old to trust those seals, and really, let's face it, age comes for us all. I know it's coming for me. It is coming. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you on the next one.